Our very special guest is State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. Welcome back to Reaching Out.
Greg, it's great to be back with you. I forgot the last time we did the show, but we were overdue to do it again, so thank you for having me back.
And I do have to tell you, you're a great friend to labor, and you're especially a great friend to the people of the state of New York. And when I get to the part in the show where you're a great friend to the people of the state of New York, I'm going to let the people know why you're a good friend to them.
Thank you for that.
As New York State Comptroller, you serve as the sole trustee to the New York State Common Pension Fund. I believe it's $181 billion now in assets. Can you tell us about those funds?
Well, you serving as a trustee, you know what the work is. And although I have, I guess, arguably the advantage of not having a board, so my board is myself, so we don't have too many arguments. We know how it works out. What I don't like about that title, sole trustee, is it gives it, I think in some ways, a false impression that I'm the one, on my own making these decisions. So although it's true we don't have a board, we have a very experienced staff. Vicki Fuller is our chief investment officer. She's doing an outstanding job. We have advisory committees. I have an investment advisory committee, outside people, a real estate advisory committee actually votes on our real estate transactions. And we have consultants that also have to sign off on transactions before I sign off on them. So there are a lot more checks and balances sometimes than people realize. And frankly, after what happened with my predecessor, we've put even more transparency and accountability mechanisms in place. So our fund, New York Common, as you appropriately call it, it's really the two major funds are the Employees Retirement System, which is most of the state workers, all the state workers, and municipal workers outside of New York City. And then we have the police and fire. So police and fire, again, is for police and fire outside of New York City. So it would be the state troopers. It would be police in the local county and town police, city police outside of the city, and firefighters, again, outside of New York City. So they're all part of New York Common. We have a very diversified fund, similar to what you have in New York City. A lot of our money is invested in the big name blue chip stocks on the stock market. In terms of public equity, a lot of money in fixed income, which is a challenge in this environment because of the low cost of money. And then to try to be diversified, we have money in real estate, in private equity. We have a little bit in absolute return strategies, hedge funds, not very much, but we do have that as part of our diversification. And we're doing more now in some new areas like real assets. So we have a diversified fund. You point out the number. Of course, this year's been somewhat up and down as far as volatility, but we ended our fiscal year when we value the fund with a 7.16 return, 7.2 return. We were pleased with that. It's a little short of what our long-term goal is, which is 7.5%, but we've had a number of good years now, so we were in that 7% range, so I was very comfortable with that. We've reduced the contribution rate that we charge to our government employers 2 years in a row. By Labor Day, we will have our numbers for this year. I don't know yet, Greg, whether we're going to be able to cut that rate again, but I'm hoping that we can. The most important number that I like to share is how well are we funded. We are not, neither the city funds nor our fund, like New Jersey, like Illinois, like these states that have these very underfunded pensions that are creating all kinds of fiscal and budget problems. We don't have that problem. We're now at about 92% funded. We're one of the best funded of all the state plans. So our fund is in strong shape. It is why I continue to argue strenuously that we do not have to retreat on our commitment to a defined benefit pension for our public workers. And in fact, having our public retirees with retirement security, that enables the majority of them, 80%, to stay in New York State, spend those retirement checks right here in our own state. And I think there's so many more benefits to maintaining the system, and I always get upset when people criticize it. But we don't have the problems that Jersey and Illinois have because we run our systems well. And, for the future, more and more people are not going to have retirement security because they don't have pensions. That's going to cost money for society and for government. So maintaining these defined benefit plans for our public workers, because they are well run, it's an important part of our economy that we don't fully, I think, appreciate. And I always answer the critics by reminding them how much pension fund dollars are put to work in New York, both the retiree checks that are cashed here and the ways in which we deploy capital to help economic growth in New York State.
You're listening to Reaching Out. I'm Gregory Floyd, President, Local 237 Teamsters. With us is our very special guest, the New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the show you were a friend of the state. Here's why. What you just said about reducing the pension contributions to municipalities by 2% because of the performance of the pension. That's being a great friend to the state, because when the municipalities don't have to pay as much into pensions, they can focus on other parts of their budgets.
Yeah.
Tell us how that worked, because you have done so well with the performance. When you first took over as Comptroller, when you first became Comptroller, how much money was in the pension
It was
fund?
about $154 billion.
So roughly about 30 billion,
Yeah.
27 billion.
Yeah.
You've increased the pension fund
Yeah.
while paying benefits.
Right. And we've always kept that commitment. We've never had a cash flow problem. Of course, you could appreciate, because you've been a trustee for a fund. We had some rough times with the
Yes.
market collapse in 08 and 09, and obviously we dipped significantly below that 154. So when you think of what we've made up since the market loss, it's really been quite significant. And we are, striving to be smart, and I would say conservative. Our long-term goal now is 7.5%. It used to be 8%. And we reduced it. We're considering, and that's what we're working on over the summer. We're working with our actuary and our advisors and our advisory committees. We may lower it even more. It could be to 7.25. It could be to 7. In the short run, that drives up costs somewhat. But I think in the long run, if we do that, it will position us in a more reasonable way. Because I do think moving forward, this economy, global economy, is so uncertain. There's so much volatility. I think it's smart to be as conservative as possible, but we still want to do it in a way that keeps those benefits and reduces the burden on the taxpayers that support it. So there are a lot of moving parts. I think sometimes people think, oh, well, it's just you invest money. No, it's the investment part. It's the benefit administration. It's making sure you have liquidity, cash flow, so you never have any jeopardy of not having the money to pay the employee benefits. And it's recognizing that this money is employee contributions and taxpayer money, and you can't make short-term decisions on all of this. You have to have a long-term perspective. And that's why, even though we had to increase the rates after we had the big collapse of the markets in 08 and 09, it was not done to penalize localities. It was really done to say, hey, if we don't do this, our fund is going to fall behind. We're going to be like Jersey. We're going to be like Illinois. But now that things are better, we're moderating that cost. So my goal is to keep a steady hand on it, continue to work hard to maximize return, reduce that contribution rate. And the bottom line, Greg, and this is your role as a trustee as well to your members, we are fiduciaries. We're responsible to making decisions in the best interest of the members of the plan and of the fund. That's our prime goal, and I think we fulfill that commitment well to our retirees of today and those who hope to be retirees in the future.
Thank you. There are so many New Yorkers still facing challenges in this recession. Do you have any advice for them?
It continues to be a tough time, and when we talk about the job regrowth in the state, and it's been significant, about 625,000 jobs regrown since the depths of the recession, private sector jobs. The reality is a number of those jobs, we see it here in the city, the newer jobs are replacing jobs that frankly were compensated at a higher level. So even people are getting work, sometimes at a lower wage level. We've lost over the past few years tens of thousands of public sector jobs. And in some of our localities, that's continuing. That's part of why the unemployment rate doesn't go down as quickly as we'd like. And certainly what we're seeing, all the talk, appropriately so, about income inequality, we're seeing household income being stagnant in many cases, while other kinds of costs are going up. Utility costs, rent. We put out a report not that long ago that showed something like 3 million households in New York that are paying rent or mortgage above the affordability level. So you're right to ask that question. It is a tough time. I do think it's getting better. Some of the data seems to be showing you're finally seeing, some salary increases. There is a push to increase the minimum wage in the state, and I think that has a lot of value because that will help to push up, income. I do think for for everyone, I think still the key to success for individuals and families is education. So even though a college degree doesn't guarantee a job, and it doesn't anymore, the reality is when you look at all the numbers, those that have a high school diploma do better than those without. Those with a college degree do better than those that only have high school. Those with an advanced degree do better than those just with a bachelor's. So for your family planning purposes, don't ever diminish the commitment to either your own education or having the money, for the children in your families. That's why we also administer the 529 College Savings Program. That's part of our responsibilities. That's an important way for families to early on in a child's life put money aside for their college education. It's why it's important. I went to a private university. I went to Hofstra. I went to the New School. But we need to maintain our investment for our public university system. CUNY, SUNY, that is still the pathway for many, many people to be the first in their family to go to college. And the quality of education in SUNY and CUNY is as good as you're going to get anywhere else, even though you may pay more. So I would say look for those opportunities. If you don't have a college path, there are other kinds of training programs, vocational apprenticeship. Do what you can to give yourself more skills. And I know it's hard sometimes to say, but also try to keep an optimistic attitude. You look at the big trends, things are getting better. That's got to be felt at the ground level as well. But don't be afraid to reach out. If you're fortunate enough to work in a job that has a union, talk to your union representatives, talk about advancement opportunities that may be in your workplace. If you're looking for a job, consider that an apprenticeship path if you're not inclined to college, and just you got to be aggressive. You got to knock on every door. Look for the opportunities that are there. If you live downstate, you have the opportunity, whether you live in the city or close by. A lot happening in New York City. A lot of new jobs in that tech sector. That's an emerging growth area. So you got to be diligent. You got to make sure you have your skills as up to date as possible, and don't be shy at knocking on every door that's out there.
Tom, we have about 30 seconds.
Oh.
I want to ask you one question.
Yep.
There's a lot of money, billions in unclaimed
funds.
Tell the people how they could get the money.
Check our website, www.osc.state.ny.us. Click on unclaimed funds. You can search online for your name. Call the 800 number, 800-221-9311. You know that there's money there sometimes.
I do. I found some for myself.
And we made it very easy for you to search online, apply online, and get that money back. We have like $13 billion we want to return to New Yorkers.
And I did receive the money, so it does work.
Good.
That's all the time we have for reaching out. Thank you once again for coming back. We're going to have you come back because this was a very good show. You're very informative. And I know the people love hearing from you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli.